Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Christy Meenan, and she's the owner of We Write It Now. She's a certified resume writer and job search strategist. I met Christy a couple of weeks ago and wanted her to come on. I think she's got an interesting story of how she's kind of built this business from the ground up. One of the things she said before we hit record is just how incredibly busy she's become. And that's all, not all. A lot of it's networking, right, Christy?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I guess let's step back and kind of give us your story.
Sure. So it's a crazy story. I feel like, when I went to school and graduated from Texas A&M, I was a journalism major with a marketing minor. And I had always hoped to do something along those lines, and like other job seekers or other career professionals, they have a lot of stops along the way. And here I am 30 something years later, and I'm back doing writing and marketing with the establishment of my business. But how my business actually happened was I was a job seeker in 2016 and trying to get hired. Like I said, I had a degree from a big university. I had worked at big organizations, had a great reputation with those organizations, and found myself, back in a job search again in 2016. And I pretty much failed. I tried for a year to get hired. I applied to over 100 positions. I was having conversations with people. I was getting introductions and what I thought doing all the things. And after a year of over 100 over 100 applications and only a handful of interviews, I hadn't received a single offer. And I just didn't understand, what was I doing wrong? What was I needing to do more of? What should I do less of? What was happening? So I took a step back and started meeting with recruiters and other hiring managers, asking them those questions, to figure out what was happening, why I wasn't getting a single offer, and not even more than a couple of interviews. I just didn't understand it. So I had those conversations, and the things that they taught me and the things that they showed me really blew me away. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I'm a pretty smart girl, and I actually found out that several of the strategies I was using were backfiring. So that really kind of made me sit up and go, what's happening here? And so I had a couple of conversations with professional colleagues and shared with them my insight. And two of them had said, why don't you start your own business and help job seekers, coach them on the things that they don't know, teach them how to get through the murky waters of what a job search looks like. And the more I thought about it and the more that I talked to people, I thought, there's something here. This could be something. So in 2019, I started my job at We Write It Now, or started my business at We Write It Now, got certified shortly thereafter. And it's just been a fantastic ride. And I've met terrific people along the way. And I get paid to help people and talk to people. So right. It's just super rewarding.
At what point did you realize that it was really all about the relationships? Because I talk to people who are job seekers, and they probably need to talk to you, and it's like, oh, same story. I've sent out dozens of I apply. I guess they're posting posting the resume into what I'll call a black box that goes nowhere.
Right. Well, I go back to thinking about, the power of relationships, whether it is professional or personal, it doesn't matter. A relationship is a relationship, and it should be two ways. So I just really, when I talk to these job seekers, I have those conversations and I relate to them because I've been in their shoes, so when they're sharing their information with me or their story with me, it resonates deeply. And I guess they can feel that, they can feel a true connection. And I am happy to say that, at least 60%, if not more, of my business is based on referrals. And those are people that, I'm not just the one and done. Like, I don't just do your resume and then send it off and don't follow up. I follow up with my clients. I ask them those questions. How's it going? What are you finding? Do you need any other help? Do you have any other questions? It's that continuous building of those relationships all throughout the process, all throughout their job search journey.
Right. When I guess let's delve into what you were doing that was kind of causing this frustration, this year of well, it's a year of frustration, of nothing, of just kind of firing things out and just having your hopes dashed. And
right. So the biggest problem, or the biggest thing that I was doing, and I see this all the time, is job seekers, they want to be everything to everybody. You want to conduct a smart, strategic, and short, ideally, job search, right? So you have a tendency to dump all of your experience on a resume. I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. I've done this, and I've done this. And so what you think is happening is you're coming across with this super, not super, but you have all of these areas of expertise. And what happens is when a recruiter is looking at your resume, they just look at it as this person has a lot of varied experience, but still is trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their life.
Right.
And so it comes across as confused instead of highly experienced in a diverse set of areas.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I've only ever had one job. I got a job out of law school and then decided I was going to go the private practice, go the private practice route, and I've never really interviewed since then. But when I went into private practice, I did a whole lot of. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was kind of like, if you want to be an attorney, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. If they've got money, I'll do it. Right. I mean, is it bankruptcy? Is it right?
Right.
They want to sue somebody. I can do any of this. And I didn't want to commit in any direction. And then thankfully, ultimately, I ran into, or I just kind of fell into what I was really kind of made to do from a legal perspective, is helping people buy and sell businesses. And it was just fate, God, I don't know, whatever, but it just all worked out. But I can see where you're talking about, where people are just kind of struggling, trying to figure out, I just want to do something.
Right.
And you don't want to commit because you're afraid that if I say I want this, they're looking for this and I'll miss that opportunity. And that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. Now, who are these HR professionals or the hiring professionals that you reached out to? Were these through connections, or were these through people that you knew?
Yeah. So actually what I did, and I kind of had the hunter mentality that, a sales professional might have. So I had to go into LinkedIn and I tapped into my connection base, which, gosh, I don't know, at that time, maybe it was 1,000 connections. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I did a filtered search for recruiters. And then I said, okay, what recruiters am I comfortable reaching out to? And there was a couple. So I reached out to them and they were terrific. They were fantastic. But I also wanted to reach out to people that did not know me. So then I expanded my reach and I tapped into a couple of recruiters that did not know me and literally asked for a discovery interview. Sent them a message. I said, I'm really struggling with this job search. I'm sure you're quite busy, but I feel like I don't completely understand what I'm doing wrong because I'm not getting the results that I'm used to. Would you be open to a 10-minute phone call? And I mean, if you think about it, everybody's busy. We were talking about that earlier. Everybody's busy, but most people can find 10 minutes to give somebody, And so by framing my ask in that way, I just need 10 minutes. The other person on the other end is more likely to say, yes, of course, I'm happy to help. And so that was one strategy that I used that worked really well. And then another strategy that I used when I was talking to hiring managers in the field that I wanted to land in is I said, who else should I speak to? Not, can you think of someone else that I should talk to? Not, can you make another introduction for me? But who do you know? And so by phrasing the question that way, instead of giving them an opportunity to say no, it's like you're actually expecting an answer. You're expecting an introduction. So it just kind of holds the other person accountable, so to speak, I guess, if you want to say.
Yeah, no, I think that's a brilliant strategy. And you're right. I mean, people are willing to give that 10 minutes because at some point they know they might need it. Right.
Or somebody did that for them.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have you gone back to any of those people and basically said, well, certainly thank you, but hey, I'm doing this now. If you know people, send them my way, because they probably run into lost people all the time.
Yeah. I actually, recently, I have started reaching out to a couple of the recruiters that were helping me many years ago, and said, hey, so I never did land, but actually out of that came a great thing. I started my own business. I'm helping others. You taught me so much. So if you come across other candidates that need my help, please make the introduction. So we're going to see how that goes, but I think it will go well. Most recruiters that I know and that I aligned with, they have a good heart. They're very busy, but they want to help job seekers. Yeah. So, it only takes a couple of minutes to do an introduction.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if they come across somebody, hey, I need more than 10 minutes. They're like, I got 10 minutes, but I need more. Well, then talk to Christy, right? I'm sure it won't work that beautifully, but yeah, and sometimes people need more than 10 minutes. It's not for you. I think it was the approach. You're a writer, you've got a journalist background. You can write, you can put something together, make it compelling. For some people, that's not the situation, right? They can't write.
Yes.
However that looks like. I'm thinking about some resumes I've seen. People.
And I'll tell you something also, there's something to be said about continuing to love on these relationships that you have. To your point earlier, you never know when they might need something from you or you might need something from them. But also what comes around goes around, and yeah, I'm in DFW. It's huge. There's a ton of people here, but it's a small network of professionals. That 6 degrees of separation in DFW, if you make any attempt to network with people, it's more like 2 degrees of separation. I had a guy that he actually interviewed me for a role, and I made it up to the top 3 candidates, and I didn't get it. Disappointed, yeah, but God had better things in store for me.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for that. But just last year, he reached out to me and said, hey, I know that you've got your own thing now. I actually need your help with my own resume. P.S. I don't know if you remember me. You had interviewed for a role. And I just kind of had to chuckle. I mean, I was thrilled that he felt comfortable enough that he could reach out to me and ask for help, because that was kind of an awkward situation.
Yeah.
But I was able to help him, and it went very well. And I'm glad that I didn't burn bridges back then.
Yeah.
So advice to other people out there, even if you live in a big metropolitan area, it's a small world of professionals, and you never know when you're going to encounter that person and what that encounter is going to look like down the road.
Yeah, no. Has anybody ever come back to you, these people that you talk to, and said, we're looking to fill this position? Do you happen to run across these sorts, or keep your eyes out for these sorts of people? Because I could see that happening, where you're talking to somebody and could be a perfect fit. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny that you say that. I'm starting to run into situations where I have an ideal candidate and I'm looking for that introduction. And I'm doing this a lot more now. The problem is I'm not a recruiter, and I don't pretend to be, and I don't know half as much as recruiters know, but I do know recruiters. So I need to kind of be mindful of my own time and how much I try to find a job for somebody, as opposed to, what they paid for. They paid for a resume, they paid for LinkedIn, they paid for interview coaching, whatever it is. I have a tendency to over pour and over deliver with my clients. And that sometimes gets me into trouble.
Yeah. My daughter's she works for a soccer team, and she talks about their sponsors, and they're very adamant about, if the sponsor pays for X, they get X. Well, can't you just take this little extra step? No, you never do that, because then it becomes that expectation that they're always going to go a little further. And
right.
And it's an occupational hazard of being a giver. That's the way I look at it. So
for sure.
Let's shift gears here. I want to talk about your business. I want to talk about We Write It Now and the things you're doing, types of things you're doing, different types of programs. And I'll shut up in a minute and let you kind of talk. One-on-one, you have group sorts of things, how, the different layers and
sure. Sure. So a lot of people often ask, what is your specialty? Like, who do you focus your work on? Do you work, with people in tech, in HR, what area? And my answer is, I don't have a niche built out yet. I'm really wanting that to kind of evolve organically. I can say that I do spend a lot of time in mid-level management professionals and director level professionals. I've done a lot of tech lately and a lot of HR, surprisingly. So those are areas that I've really spent a good chunk of time this year in. I offer resume services. I do career coaching. I do job search strategies. I love helping job seekers speed up the job search process, by being really strategic in what they do and creating a daily method of operations or a daily mode of operations, to keep them focused, because it's really easy to get distracted when you're looking for a job. And especially if you are completely out of a job and you have all day to do it, you could literally easily spend 10 hours a day on your job search. And first of all, that's not healthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lot, So I coach job seekers on the strategy end of it. And then I work on LinkedIn. I teach LinkedIn coaching, best practices, how to get more eyes on your profile, how to build connections authentically and not necessarily out of need, but out of mutual interests, commonalities, finding those commonalities and taking it from there. Let's see. So resumes, LinkedIn, job search coaching, LinkedIn coaching. I think that about covers it. I mean, that pretty much wipes out my day.
Well, it's pretty comprehensive. When somebody comes to you for resume help, are they often coming with a blank piece of paper, or hey, here's my first draft, or
Yeah. So mostly it's, hey, I haven't updated my resume with my most current job, you know, or it's been 5 years and I know my resume is not up to date with the latest formatting, you know, it looks dated. So in my process, I have you send over the most recent copy of your resume. I take a look at it. I look at it from first the lens of a recruiter. So I say, okay, what's wrong with this resume? What am I wanting more of? What am I not seeing? You know, where are the red flags? Where are the yellow flags? And then the second pass, I say, okay, now that I know those things, as a resume writer, what can I do to improve it? Mm-hmm. And can I improve it? I am not afraid at all to say, you know what, your resume looks pretty good. I don't want to take you on as a resume client. I feel like I would be taking your money because it looks pretty good, you know? So sometimes that happens. I don't really work too well with somebody that has nothing to give. It just takes too much of my time and the price would be too high. It's just not a good fit.
Right.
But I do take an existing resume and I drop it into my format, which has been proven to get past applicant tracking systems. Not all the time. Nobody can guarantee that. But, you know, I do all the things to help improve the odds that it's going to make it past the ATS. And then the second thing that I do for these resumes is I make it easy for recruiters to say, yes, this person has the skills. They are worthy of bringing in for an interview, or I definitely want to read further, or I definitely want to put this, you know, in a potential bucket, so to speak. When a recruiter is skimming the resume, you know, they either say, yes, this resume warrants more, or no, this person doesn't have what I'm needing. Or the big one is, I don't understand this resume. There's too much information. I have to read it like a book. This person is unfocused. And then it goes in the no pile anyway. So that's my big goal, is to get your resume skimmable, ATS compliant, and in the hands of recruiters.
Okay. When you say ATS, I haven't had a job in 30 years. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm so glad you asked that, Frank. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking Systems. It's a big thing. I mean, a big thing. I think the last number I saw on jobscan.com was 91 or 92% of mid to large scale companies or large size organizations use some form of applicant tracking systems. They basically use these systems to quickly sift through resumes, looking for keywords, things that the hiring manager has entered in. And once the ATSs find a good match, and it doesn't have to be 100%, but once they find a good match, then it dumps it into a bucket, so to speak, you know, and the recruiter can then actually go through those physically and put eyes on those documents. And there are things that you can do in the document that can really trip up the ATS and get your resume rejected. So you may not even get a chance to get eyes on your resume. So when I'm talking to people on the phone and they're deciding whether to work with me or not, I always encourage them to Google applicant tracking systems so they can see all of the things that are at play. And it's a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, when that was part of the problem back in 2016, was I was not writing, you know, with the ATS in mind. So that was one of my problems as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess last question, mainly working individuals. Do you have group things as well, or is it mainly individuals?
No, it's really just one-on-one. I don't have groups. You know, one thing that is coming down the pipe, and I'm not going to put a date on it because that hasn't worked so well for me. I actually have a LinkedIn course, one for job seekers and then one for small business owners that want to learn how to best utilize LinkedIn to brand their business and to build those connections. So I've got these digital courses, all of the meat is there, the content is there. I just haven't put it on a platform yet. So that's up and coming. And I'd like to eventually do some live webinars, just on job search best practices. But these are all things that are floating around in my head that I haven't really had time to implement yet.
Well, I want to get you back on at some point. I mean, this was really kind of about your journey, but get you back on and just, the art of a great job search.
I appreciate that.
I think it would be a good topic. Best way to get a hold of you?
So you can reach me on LinkedIn, Kristi Meenan, Kristi, or you can go to my website at We Write It Now.
Okay.
WeWriteItNow.com. WeWriteItNow.com.
Okay.
And I do want to throw in one more thing, and this is, I guess, my parting words of wisdom, and not just for job seekers, but for anybody. Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether you're starting your own business, doing a job, like whatever it is. There are terrific humans out there. There's a lot of great people on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people not on LinkedIn, but don't be afraid to ask people for help. And don't be afraid to ask for introductions, because introductions are literally Dick meet Jane, Jane meet Dick. It's very easy, and more and more people are open to doing that for you. So,
yeah, I really appreciate your time. We will talk again. That's the big tease for the audience. She'll be back on.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.